I'd like to call us into order. I'd like to call on Ward 2, Councilman Smiley.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight's invocation is going to be by Reverend Paul Ganther. He was raised in Northern Illinois. He graduate of the Seminary of Bright Divinity School in Texas Christian University. He's married to the Reverend Rachel Ganther. They have 2 children. He was an ordained minister in January 1988 by the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. His first pastorate was in Clintonville Christian Church Disciples of Christ in Bourbon County, Kentucky. He is the chaplain for the Army National Guard since 2008. He was deployed to northern Afghanistan in 2011 and 2012. He moved to Hopkinsville in 2017 to serve as full-time chaplain at Christian Care Communities in Hopkinsville and is still there. He is co-pastor with his wife, Rachel, at the Liberty Christian Church Disciples of Christ in Beverly, Kentucky. Paul?
Good evening. Please pray with me. Heavenly Father, in our hearts we plan our course, but we pray that you establish our steps in 2023 from this city council meeting to the highest office in our land. I pray that we seek you for advice. Let us not make decisions based upon what we know, but let us act founded in wisdom, especially your wisdom. Please guide us, Lord. We place this meeting in your hands. We place our state in your hands. We place our nation and our world in your hands. Let this day, most especially, we place our hearts and our minds in your hands so that you may direct us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. If I could get everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Call on the clerk for the roll call.
Councilmember Francis.
Here.
Councilmember Smiley.
Here.
Councilmember Marsh.
Here.
Councilmember Crabtree.
Here.
Councilmember Craig.
Here.
Councilmember Martin.
Here.
Councilmember Wilcox. Councilmember Meek. Councilmember Lineberger.
Here.
Councilmember Keel.
Here.
Councilmember Bell.
Here.
And Councilmember Handy.
Present.
All right, we've got 10 here, so we do have a quorum.
Thank you. Councilman Meeks is not here this evening. He at a funeral for his brother, and Mr. Wilcox is at work. So that's where we're at tonight on them too. Wish they were here. Awards and recognitions. We have anything?
No, sir.
Oh, all right. Clerk says we're good there. Public comments. If anybody with public comments would like to come to the podium and speak, please state your name and address. Any public comments? All right. Seeing none, I guess it's to me on mayor's comments. First things first, congratulations to Miss Chrissy on the new grandson she got today. Hope you enjoy him very much tomorrow. Next on it, I would like to thank Men to Be. We had a great Saturday and program there. Men to Be program done a great job. Thank you, Councilman Bell, for all you did and your organization. And thank you for the MLK part that you done with the coat drives on that for Men to Be. Thank you. All right. Let's don't forget the Kiwanis have a pancake breakfast on February the 4th, 7 to 11. So everybody bring the grandkids out so they can eat, because mine will be hollering, let's go, Pop. KLC meeting on the 25th through the 27th. My office will be at KLC, so we will not be in for them couple days, so everyone please do that, remember that. And I'd like to congratulate Miss Melissa Clayton for the CFO job.
Where is she?
And she's back here in the back hiding right. He will be taking over after Robert is retired, and that's who's going to fill. They'll be working together in the transition. Thank you. All righty, I would now, on behalf of me, Mr. Troy Body will give us a little brief update here that he has.
The mayor, thank you, Mayor. The mayor asked me to speak to the council members about the train depot. As you know, it's in the news more than a lot of things today, and it's gotten some traction, and we owe you a response. So I'm going to do a little backup and then back into it. There will be a proper response from the mayor's office. The chief of fire over there has asked for a structural engineer from Gardner and Owensboro to come on 24 January. And once we get the engineer here to give us a proper report, there will be a press release issued out to the public. Back in 2019, when the Arts Council was still in the building, we got a call from Margaret Prim saying the building is buckled. And if you go down there, you can see where it bunched out. Her door frame started turning sideways. The floor was giving in. So we got them out very quickly, and they moved over into the Alhambra, where they've been ever since. CDS, working with the mayor's office then, called in Bell Engineering to just look around and do some inspections and so forth. And we got some numbers back to sort of stabilize it, that we're in the 900,000 to the million plus at that time. Council, we thought those numbers would be a lot less. Council at that time gave us roughly, and Mike can correct me, I believe about 130,000 to do the stabilization. Once we saw the numbers were much higher, we didn't spend the money. Just simply been a Band-Aid and a waste of funds, so we held it. Then in 2019, January, we had a small fire over there, and then the fire department went back in, and again, we closed down the building, locked it up, held it together as best we could. As you know, council allowed us to transfer it to LDC and CDS last year. Since then, CDS and LDC has looked into it again with Bell Engineering to look at what would make this building properly stable and, to use their words, building stabilization and adaptive reuse. Those numbers, and I'm going to jump the gun here, come in at 2 million and plus. And as you guys know, those numbers are getting higher and higher every day. So it's out there. People are talking about it. And those that are talking about it, they're absolutely right. Something must be done. That building got in the shape it is in because of neglect from the past. And they're right. It's on the agenda now. Something must be done. We are looking into it. But we want the public to understand these are decision points. We have to look at those numbers, and we have to look at the city that we are charged, all of you, to manage, and what 2 million and 2 million plus means to us. So if the council members look on their desk, Chrissy has gave you some numbers, and these, we're just giving you a sense of what $2 million means. From Public Works, we could rip up that splash pad over there and put a new one in for far less. We could rip up the baseball fields and do a new one for $1 million. We could pave 20 more streets. We could get a wave pool for 2.5, this inclusive park that everyone is wanting, and they should. It's lovely. The ideal of it, $1 million, or finishing the rail trail and plus would be $2 million in that area. If you look at IT, Daryl has told us we could change all the cameras in the city for $350,000. And you could look in fire, a pumper truck and a ladder truck for $2 million. And we're going through these numbers. Chief told me and police that we could do 40 new vehicles for $2 million. And if you go down and look at the bottom part, we have a litany of things that needs to be done in the police department that's 150,000 plus and growing. Why are we throwing these numbers out there? Because we have tough decisions that need to be made. And will give the public a proper response, but $2 million is not something we take lightly. But they are right. It's a precious building. Everybody has a story to tell about the building. We do care about it. It has been neglected in the past, so there's nothing I can do about that. And we will have a structural engineer here to tell us where we go from there. And we will respond to the public then. But we wanted council to have this information to understand we're not ignoring this. We're being patient and deliberate,
and we will respond in kind.
Thank you, Troy. So any questions, give me and Troy a call, and we'll see if we can get them answered for you, and we're waiting on the structural engineer to get back with us after the 24th. Moving on along, number 8, reports from officers and committee and guest speakers. I call on Mr. Jeff Hurd from HES.
Thank you, Mayor Knight.
Thank you.
On behalf of HES, I appreciate the opportunity to be here with the City Council tonight. Kind of share what's going on in 2022 at Hopkinsville Electric System. So to say 22 was a very challenging year would be an understatement. If you remember, it started on January the 1st with a tornado downtown. So we were working on repairing power lines and building back services. And then it ended with Winter Storm Elliott that led to, okay, that's all right. Richard Shaw, our manager of telecom and IT, if you see, he's right there on the spot right there. So I want to recognize Mr. Shaw and Angie Gibbs, Cody Nalsinger, and Dustin Lover here for support or escort me out the building, whatever process we take. And as we mentioned in there, so it began with the January 1st tornado. It ended with Winter Storm Elliott that led to rolling planned power outages or blackouts, I mentioned that, and in between there we had purple street lights. So we definitely had some challenges, but there were several still noteworthy things that happened, and I'd like to kind of go over those. But normally at this time I have Miss Anna Herr from Dugan Gentry and Associates. She gives a brief review of our financial audit. Unfortunately, she was sick and could not be here tonight, so I'll just read a brief statement from her regarding our financial audit from this previous year. We have audited the accompanying financial statements of Hopkinsville Electric System, the City of Hopkinsville, Kentucky for the years ending June 30th, 2022 and 21, and the related notes to the financial statements as listed in table of contents. In accordance with the government accounting standards, we have also issued a report dated October the 20th of 2022 in our consideration of the Hopkinsville Electric System, the City of Hopkinsville, internal control over financial reporting and our test of its compliance with certain provision, laws, regulations, contracts, grant agreements, and other matters. Financial highlights include total operating revenues of the 22 fiscal year increased $5.2 million, or about a 14.82% increase. Operating expenditures were over $40 million with 4.767 increase, or about a 13.38% increase in expenditures from the previous year. Total net assets for the year were $16,448,000 compared to $16,709,000 on the previous year, a decrease of $260,641. In summary, Dugan Gentry and Associates has issued an unmodified opinion, which is a clean audit opinion of the Hopkinsville Electric System. So did bring copies, so if anyone is interested, it makes great nighttime reading. I think we've already issued copies to the mayor and Troy and Ms. Fletcher, but we also have other paper copies for any of the city council might be interested in it. Hopkinsville Electric System, as mentioned up there, we've been in business since '42, so 80 years in the electric business, and in the past 23 in the broadband or telecommunications. Part of our mission statement, I'll try to go through these because I want to really hit the highlights. I know your time's valuable, so I want to kind of focus on a couple of events that's happened this year. It goes back to our mission statements, really 3 key points of this: safe, reliable, and economical service. Has to be in that order. It always starts with safety of our employees and the public, and then it goes to making sure it's reliable. It needs to stay on, and we get used to the 99.9% reliability, and then the economics also play a factor in that. All the way back, that's actually a picture on the left, the black and white from 1942. I believe that was over on 4th Street when our operations center started. So, and then on the right is our current telecom and line crew. And so I guess the main point to take out of this is we still, even though 80 years have passed, we still have a lot of dedicated employees that are on the clock 24/7 to make sure the power stays on and the internet's working. You can't really tell our story without also including TVA. Of course, TVA came in '33, and then when we were incorporated in '42, shortly thereafter, we signed a power contract with TVA. So we've been purchasing power from our inception as a corporation. It goes all the way back to that time. And so we have an all requirements contract with TVA. And so a key point of this is HES doesn't generate any electricity. We buy it all from TVA at this point in time. Our job is to take it from their transmission lines and, of course, distribute it to our 13,000 customers. So we receive electric bill, a power bill from TVA each month. So roughly about 73 cents out of every dollar we collect goes to pay our power bill to TVA. TVA's service area includes, you can see right here, it's about a seven-state area. HES Energy Net is one of 153 power suppliers, and that kind of leads me into the mornings of December the 23rd and 24th. If you remember, we were contacted by TVA, and I can go in depth, and I'll pause in between some of my statements. So if there's any questions, I know that's been one of the topics that's been asked quite a bit about what led us to that point. And basically, it was like most things that happen, it's a combination of several events. One of those was an all-time peak. That was with that cold temperatures, they were not only the demand, the capacity of it, but also the amount of energy that TVA was transferring. And it wasn't just, sometimes it's localized in one state or one area, but this was their whole system-wide. And then a couple of their generation plants, one in Cumberland City, Tennessee, and one in Oak Ridge, some of their I think coal-fired units, actually, they had trouble getting those up to full capacity, and so that kind of put us at alert system. So we got a call probably 4 o'clock that morning, 4 or 5 o'clock, and then within 30 minutes they had went to what they call step 5, which is actually going to intermittent power outages. So we only had about a 30-minute reaction time, and that's one thing that we've been in multiple conversations with TVA to have that communication so that we have more notice. So that really made it difficult for us on that morning to be able to communicate that, but we responded and was able to do the reduction. So they asked us to cut back 5%, which is what they did across the whole valley-wide. And that was to prevent a catastrophic failure and basically lose all of their transmission facilities at that point in time. Just to kind of give a point of reference, there was 740 million kilowatt hours in that 24-hour period that flowed through the whole valley of electricity. Just to kind of put those numbers in reference, that's enough electricity in that 24-hour period to serve our system for 2 years. So that's quite a bit of electricity is flowing through there. And then it was also, they also purchased electricity from outside the valley, a small portion of it. And of course, that was not available at that time. So combination of peak usage and across the whole system, all that led to that. So I can tell you we've had multiple conversations, and they're still going on with TVA to go forward, because I had a discussion with one of the city council members just here a minute ago that where do we go from here? That's really the question. What lessons do we learn to make sure this doesn't happen in the future? And it's the capacity issue, the first time in TVA's 90 years that capacity is coming with a premium, and it's hard with, and then we see going forward with electric vehicles and other high energy users that we're just going to need more capacity than what we've ever needed before. And so with that, I know TVA, a lot of their coal-fired units are being taken offline as they're reaching the point where they're no longer serviceable. I know probably the nearest one to us has been Paradise. So that was 2017, 18. They were taking, 3 units were taken offline in Drakesboro and replaced with gas units that are close but not total amount of capacity there. And so I think even Cumberland is next in line in 2026. So the question is, where do we go from here? That's what we've asked TVA, and I have another chart just showing a little. If you see the tables to the left, those bars might surprise you, but 42% of the generation mix that TVA has is nuclear power. You know, a lot of times you think of TVA, it'd be hydro, so nuclear, about 42%, and then gas and coal is 45%, and then actually hydro is right around 9–10%. And so TVA has shared with us that their plan going forward is actually from a firm capacity standpoint, of course, solar And wind is part of that generation mix, but it's not dispatchable in the sense that when you need it, it's there to call on it. You know, it's not going to help you at night or when the wind's not blowing. So nuclear is the direction that TVA is pursuing right now. Of course, that has some federal guidelines and rules and regulations. Being a federal entity, that TVA is pursuing permission from the government to do a pilot project. And if that goes well, they're talking about building small nuclear reactors across their whole service area, up to 20 units over the next 20 years. So it's pretty ambitious, but there's something that we've got to move forward with this, because this, like I said, this is the first time in the history of TVA that we've come to this point where we've had a blackout or peak situation. So that's kind of the current state of affairs, and I know TVA, we've had several meetings, and going forward, there's going to be quite a few more, but you know, this is not just unique to TVA. It's happened in Texas a few years ago in other locations, but this is the first time we've experienced it. It hits close to home, but it's pretty simple to see that there's a need for additional capacity, especially as we move forward and towards new technologies and electric vehicles. All those items are going to have to have the necessary generation. So I just stop right there and see if there's any questions or comments.
Any questions from Mr. Hurd? All right.
All right. I'll move forward then.
All right.
Something that's a little bit better topic is talking about the race, talking about the economics of it. In Kentucky, we're at one of the lower states, being in the middle of the United States, on the coastal California, New York, they're between 20 and 24 cents a kilowatt hour. We're fortunate in Kentucky, we're in the 14-cent range per kWh. And then even if you look at Hopkinsville electric system, we're just under 9.3 cents, so that's 34. So not only we Kentucky low, but then we're 34% lower as a utility. And then this is just chart. It might be hard to see the numbers, but this is just a comparison to a dozen or so of the utilities in our region, how we match up with that. So 1,000 kWh is kind of a standard monthly usage. So we picked that out, and this is just for a disclaimer, that's the residential rates. I just had one chart on related to that. So I will say that we did have our first rate increase of 1.7% in October, and this was the first one we have had since 2017. So it was a situation with all the cost increases with, we're no different than a lot of the other industries with transformers and poles and wire, everything that we have to purchase, we've seen large increases. TVA has had some fuel cost additions, and those vary from month to month, so anything that they charge us is a straight pass-through. So that's the 1.7 was the first one that actually stayed with HES and utilized for our system upgrades and all. So, you know, that's something we want to be good stewards of our finances, and we understand being the sole provider that we need to make sure that we're providing a service at the lowest cost. Also touch on this. This is probably something I'm most proud of that it happened even before. It's not just one person, but it's our whole company that's involved with this. But we're at 19 and a half years without a recordable lost time injury. So we deal in a very dangerous job between the high voltage and heights and the right of way that we maintain. That's something to take great pride in. That making sure all of our employees go home every night safely. And so we're at just over almost at 7,200 days now. So, and that also a reflection to make sure that we're protecting the public as well as our own employees. And this just, we continue to invest. We're talking about the rate increase. A lot of that goes towards infrastructure for our electrical and broadband systems. So since 2018, these are a few pictures of some of the locations we've worked at, but we've invested over $10 million, 6 on the electric and 4 on the broadband throughout our system, and even here, especially up and down the central part of town, you'll see a lot of facilities that have been upgraded to make sure. So that was maybe something that was lost in the discussion with TVA. We had no system failures. We had a handful of customers were out, but we didn't lose any of our distribution lines during these storms. So unfortunately, that's overshadowed when our power supplier goes out. But I do take pride in knowing that in the largest winter event that we've had, our system held up very well. Purple streetlights. You see, I'm mixing in the good with the bad. That's how they write. You show a few positive things and you go back and forth. The left-hand side is we had agreement with the city in 2017 to 19 to replace all of our streetlights. At that time, we had old mercury vapor and sodium, the yellow lights. And so you go down the boulevard and you had a yellow light on one side and a dull white one, and then we had a new LED. And so we made an agreement to replace, make a wholesale change. And it was going to be beneficial to the city and as us as well from a savings standpoint and reduced maintenance on our part. Unfortunately, the light supplier, American Electric, now it's Acuity, who we purchased it from, had a defect that was done during the time that we purchased over 3,000 streetlights. And so when you see these purple streetlights, that's the natural color of the wavelength of those particular lights. They're white because of a globe. There's a phosphorus coating on the globes that's where the defective element is the phosphorus slowly wears off, and that's what gives it the white glow. And so as it gradually wears off, that's where it goes from white to a light blue, dark blue, and then in purple. And so we've been very diligent trying to locate all, and so each one of those purple marks, the X's represent a total of about 1,600, roughly about 1,600 street lights. So roughly half of all of our street lights are defective. That was before, and at the current time, the green have been replaced. So part of this is a supply chain issue as well. Unfortunately, we weren't, this is a nationwide. If you Google purple street lights, you'll see everything from California to Florida. So we're not the only ones trying to get replacement lights. And so as they have come in, then we've been diligent about replacing those. So we're about to receive our last order, but we've replaced about 1,000, so we're down to roughly about 600 street lights that still need to be replaced. We've dedicated a service truck that once the remaining replacement shipment comes in, that will, 1st of February, that we'll be diligent to replace the rest of these lights. And there still could be, I guess, some more that that are defective that just haven't showed themselves, and we'll do that. So fortunately, we've got an agreement with the manufacturer to get not only the new lights, but the labor cost as well. So that is, unfortunately, that's part of a nationwide, and one side story is our neighboring utility in Bowling Green. If any of you are familiar with Bowling Green High School, their mascot is the Purples. And so when they saw this, they had called my counterpart, the manager over there, and wanted to know where they could get some purple street lights. And he said, well, we've got about 100,000 out there, and I think there's plenty to last you if you want to go down that road. So I haven't found anybody that wants ours yet. Hometown internet provider. And I know we've got a county project going on, but that's from the pot of money that comes from the county fiscal court funds. But our focus is also on the city of Hopkinsville residents, and we've currently, as you see, we've passed 5,200 homes, and we're very committed to building out our fiber network through town. We still have some areas where we have a hybrid system and a wireless that needs to be upgraded, but as we move along, a lot of it's on the southwest part of town, but our intention is the funds, as we have the monies, that we keep moving forward until we have 1 gigabyte available across the whole system. And Mr. Keel, we're working on their direction as well. So that is definitely the top of our list. Along with that is...
My neighbors will appreciate it.
So we do offer 3 separate plans, and part of being a hometown provider, we don't have any contracts, and a lot of this is about providing support. So when you call with an internet question or needing technical expertise, you're talking to someone here locally here in town, and I think that is a big part of the frustration with a lot of utilities, is that you're talking to someone that's not in your service area. So that kind of leads into involved in the community, and a big part of HES Energy Net is not being the hometown provider, but is being involved in the community. So these are just a few photos, and employees here tonight are a big part of that you'll see them, whether it's ringing the bell at Salvation Army or in the school systems doing the books or helping. The Christmas parade is definitely something we enjoy participating in. So that's a big part of being committed to being hometown providers, that you'll see us at church and the supermarkets as well. And then very pleased, the United Way is very near and dear to HES's Energy Net's heart, and for a company of our size of 52 full-time employees, we crossed over the $30,000 threshold. So there was corporate match in that, but that shows you the commitment from our employees, and then also some other ventures that we participated in. So I think I have one more. And so that was during the October, during breast cancer awareness. So that's a picture of our fabulous team. And then I'd be remiss without not mentioning our 5-member board. Buddy Slaughter is our board chair, Spencer Collagen, Reginald Davis, Spencer Collagen, and our newest representative from the city council, Miss Amy Craig, will be coming aboard. Look for that. And then Mr. Jack Lackey is our attorney. So that's the team that keeps the lights on and the internet flowing, and very appreciative to have each one of them aboard and have them part of our team. So with that, I just kind of opened up if there's any other questions or comments. I know I kind of went through that quickly, but I wanted to make sure I hit the high points.
Any questions for Mr. Hurd?
Or you can catch me after. I'll be glad to talk afterwards.
All righty. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right.
All righty. Thank you to HES and Mr. Jeff Hurd for their report. Monthly financial statement, Mr. Robert Martin.
It's hard to believe we're already halfway through this fiscal year, 50%. So the information I'm going over tonight is the same information that you've got a packet in front of you. But we start off with our interfund transfers for the month of December. We transferred $5,000 to the Industrial and Civic Fairs for an additional allocation for the Economic Development Council to cover increased operating costs for recruiting new businesses. We also transferred $2,500 to the Industrial and Civic Affairs for a contribution to You Decide Kentucky, and $7,500 to other city properties. As you all probably, some of you remember, the Senior Citizens is located in property that used to be a church. And on the grounds, there is a small house that used to be the parsonage. The county owns this house. The rent goes towards the senior citizens to help fund their operating cost. But we have had a long time agreement with the county to help if there's any maintenance costs to that building. And we transfer $7,500 for reimbursing the county for 1/2 the cost of remodeling a bathroom for the rental property there. There were 2 bathrooms that was remodeled. We paid for 1/2 of the cost of one bathroom. Of course, the county picked up the other 1/2, and then the county paid 100% of the other bathroom that was remodeled. So the total transfers for the month of December was $15,000. Year-to-date is $85,149, and of course we budgeted $100,000 in the interfund account, so that leaves $14,851.
Robert?
Yes.
Can you go back to the slide preceding that? Did these go through council vote, or how were these done?
No, this is Mayor Lynch. This is the mayor's discretion fund.
Right.
Anything,
That's how Mayor Lynch-
he can put up to $7,500. Anything above $7,500 has to go through council. So you all, as council, has approved 2 large projects this year. One was for the sidewalks on Gateway lane, and the other was to stabilize the bank there at the rail trail where the bridge is, the pedestrian bridge.
So how many times can the mayor do this? I mean,
He can only fund $7,500 per project, but as long as there's money left in that interfund account, he can tap into that.
so that funding comes from the interfund transfer account, correct?
Yes, which you all, every year in the budget process, for the past several years, we have budgeted $100,000. That amount can be increased with a budget amendment if you want to anytime during the year.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So we start off with our general fund. We carried over encumbrances from last fiscal year of $147,302. We've collected so far $24,714,000. We have spent $21,690,000, and that includes $976,000 that has been transferred to the capital fund. We do those transfers quarterly, and at the end of December, we did another transfer for the second quarter. That gives us revenues over expenses of $3,170,991. We had encumbrances as of December 31st of $102,000. So that gives us revenues over expenses and encumbrances of $3,068,000. Of course, our payroll tax is our largest source of revenue. For the 6 months that ended December 31st, we budgeted $8,986,000. Happy to say that we have collected $9,669,000, and that's an equivalent payroll of $495,866,974. That means that our local businesses paid out that much in payroll to generate that $9,669,000 in revenue. We have always kind of had a goal, or one of our goals is to have a $1 billion equivalent payroll. We're getting close to that, because if we were to have $1 billion at the end of December, we would have 500 million. So we may not reach it this year, but we're getting very close to it. You can see this time last year, we had collected $8,518,000. The equivalent payroll for December bounced back. If you remember, November, it was a small decrease, but for December, it was 11.7% more than what it was for December of last year. And the increase in the equivalent payroll for the 6 months is 13.5%. So we're doing very well with our payroll tax collections. Property taxes, we budgeted $4,989,000. Of course, property tax season is over. Mainly October through December is the main months we collect property taxes. We have collected $5,078,000, and that represents 101.8% of our budget. And this time last year, we collected $4,867,000, and that represented 99% of our budget. We'll still collect a small amount of property tax for during the remaining 6 months of the year. Business licenses, we budgeted $1.8 million. So far, we have collected $386,000. That represents 21.5% of our budget. Most of our businesses are on a calendar year reporting basis, and therefore their business license is due April 15th unless they get an extension. So you'll see in April that amount will really jump up. This time last year, we had collected $277,000. MRA fund, the Municipal Road Aid Fund, this is revenue that is sent to us from the state. We started off with prior year encumbrances of $358,000. That is mainly road projects that we did not have time to finish in the last fiscal year, but that money was budgeted in the last fiscal year and was carried over into this year. Money so far from the state has been $342,000. We have actually spent $536,000. That gives us revenues over expenses of $164,000. Encumbrances of almost $80,000, and that gives us revenues over expenses and encumbrances of $84,000. Of course, with the paving plant closed, there will be little activity in this fund until the spring comes. Capital fund, we had over $2 million of encumbrances carried forward. Of course, as I said in previous reports, just the supply chain issues, mainly with vehicles. We had a lot of vehicles ordered that we just could not get in the last fiscal year, so those amounts were carried over. So far this year, we have transferred 1/3 of the insurance premium tax. That represents the 2.5% of the insurance premium tax. And the WINS insurance premium tax, 1% of the insurance premium tax is used to pay the debt service on WINS, on the WINS bonds. Anything that we collect in excess of what is needed for debt service, which is so far for the first 6 months is $92,000, we transfer over to the capital fund. So that's the $976,000 that you saw earlier on the general fund slide. We have spent $1,670,000, so some vehicles have started coming in. We still have revenues over expenses of $1,331,000. Encumbrances have decreased to $816,000 at the end of December, and that gives us revenues over expenses and encumbrances of $514,000. Again, if the departments spent evenly throughout the year, they would be at 50% of the budget. Of course, we know departments do not spend evenly throughout the year. The first couple of months, it's heavy with insurance and workers' comp. Also, bond payments will hit us. But as the year progresses throughout the year, those percentages falls more in line. Admin has spent 49.8%. Tax Department 50.7%, IT 47.7%, Legislative 51.2%, Police is 50.6%, ECC at 47.3%, Fires at 51.6%, EMS is at 49.8%, Public Works Admin's at 48.2%, City Maintenance is at 46.2%, Fort Campbell Contracts is at 42.3%, Service Centers at 47.8%, Parks and Recreations at 56.4%, Sportsplex at 42.9%. Of course, the water park has been closed. It's at 7.5%, which is mainly utilities just to keep the power going out there. And the total general fund is 50.9%. MRA is right at 50%, 50.5%, and capital's at 42%. And then our cash balance, we started off the year with $11,873,000 receipts to date, and the expenditures you saw on the general fund slide. So that gives us our cash balance of December 31st of $14,897,000. We subtract out our general fund encumbrances as of December 31st of $102,529. That gives us what we call our available cash as of the end of December of $14,795,000. At the end of November, it was $15,183,000. But this time last year, it was $12,741,000. So almost an increase of $2 million from this year compared to last year. And then we look at our percentages to our budget. We have our available cash of the $14,795,000. We subtract out those items that have been reserved by council for specific items. That gives us what we call our unassigned cash fund balance, $13,114,000. We have our adjusted operating budget of $35 million. So if we look at our percentage of available cash to adjusted operating budget, it's 42.2. This time last year, it was 37.9. And the unassigned, which is the $13,114,000, you compare that to the adjusted operating budget, and we're at 37.4. And we're at, last year at 29.1. So we have a very healthy reserve, which is good you have reserve basically for unexpected expenses that may come up, such as a tornado, a flood, hopefully not ever an earthquake, but you never know, fire, and also if your revenues go down like they did during COVID. So that is why we have a reserve on hand, so the city can keep operating even though there may be unexpected bumps along the road during the year. So I'd be happy to address any questions you may have.
Any questions for Robert? Seeing none, Robert? Thank you.
Thank you.
And number 9, we got approval of minutes.
Second.
Who made that one?
Natasha.
Natasha and Mr. Keel. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All righty. Executive orders, number 10. Executive Order 21-2023, Code Enforcement Board.
Effective March 1, 2023, Tony Meacham shall be reappointed to the Code of Ordinance Enforcement Board. This term shall expire February 28, 2026, and we do need a motion.
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Marsh and Amy. Questioning it? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes. There we go. All righty. Executive Order 22-2023, Hopkinsville Christian County Conference and Center Court. Ms. Christie?
Effective immediately, Brooke Young shall be appointed to the Hopkinsville Christian County Conference Center Corporation Board to fill the unexpired term of Julia Crenshaw. This term shall expire January 31, 2027. Effective February 1, 2023, Calvin Givens shall be reappointed to the Hopkinsville Christian County Conference Center Corporation Board. This term shall expire January 31, 2027, and we do need a motion.
Motion.
Second.
We got Bruce as a second. Who was the first?
Natasha.
Natasha. All righty. Natasha and Bruce. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving right along. All right, any other business that needs to come before council? All righty. Seeing no other, let's move into councilman members' comments. Anybody have comments tonight?
I, like you, want to congratulate the sponsors for the significant, important walk
Yes.
that the HRC, Hopkinsville Community College, Men to Be, which is a great organization, Lipstick After Dark,
Yes.
several churches. It was just a really good turnout, and weather cooperated, so that was great. They had a great program down at HCC, and several churches, several young people were part of that, and just a really bright spot, for our community, knowing that we have some young people like that coming up. So we just want to congratulate them, all the participants, the churches and all, and thank you for coming to Ward 3 to do that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Marsh.
Yeah.
Any other comments? All righty. I ask for an adjournment from
So moved.
Mr. Bruce.
Oh, sorry, I thought we were asking for adjournment. Let's adjourn.
I'm sorry, I got to hit it.
Jumping the gun here.
Today would have been Muhammad Ali's 81st birthday, and I'd like to offer a quote that he made at one time. Service to others is the rent you pay for the room here on earth.
Thank you, Mr. Smiley. All right, now we need an adjournment.
You want me to make that motion again?
Yes.
Motion.
All right, I got Amy and I got Steve there. Thank you.
That's good.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.